Our HOA president had been stealing our internet for months. When my daughter changed the Wi-Fi password to stop her, the harassment began. Fake violations, threats, and intimidation followed. Then one afternoon, she showed up at our house with a gun and fired. 3 minutes later, police arrested her for attempted murder. Before you watch full story, comment below from which country are you watching. Don't forget to subscribe for more amazing stories. I never thought changing a Wi-Fi password would end with my daughter bleeding on our front lawn. But that's exactly what happened when our HOA president, Karen Mitchell, decided she was above the law. My name is Linda Cooper, and I'm a 42-year-old nurse working at St. Mary's Hospital. For the past 6 years, I've lived in Pinewood Estates with my 17-year-old daughter, Emma. We moved here after my divorce, hoping for a fresh start in a nice neighborhood. What we got instead was a nightmare disguised as a homeowners association. It began 3 months ago when Emma noticed our internet was running extremely slow. She was trying to finish her college applications, and every page took forever to load. As a high school senior with a 4.0 GPA, she needed reliable internet for her research papers and online scholarship applications. "Mom, something's wrong with our Wi-Fi," Emma said one evening, staring at her laptop screen with frustration. "I've been trying to upload my essay for 20 minutes. I walked over and checked our router. That's when I noticed something strange. There were 5 devices connected to our network, but we only had 3 devices in our house: my phone, Emma's laptop, and our smart TV. Someone's using our internet," I said, feeling a mix of confusion and anger. Emma pulled up the router settings and checked the connected devices. 2 unknown devices were streaming video content, using up most of our bandwidth. She traced the IP addresses and found they were coming from the house next door. Our neighbor was Karen Mitchell, a 55-year-old widow who served as the Pinewood Estates HOA president. She'd held that position for 8 years, and everyone in the neighborhood either feared her or avoided her completely. Karen wasn't just strict, she was cruel. She'd fine families for leaving their garbage cans out 10 minutes too long. She'd report children for riding bikes on the sidewalk. She'd threaten elderly residents with violations for having lawn furniture that wasn't approved colors. The Hendersons moved out last year after Karen fined them $5,000 for painting their front door navy blue instead of the approved colonial blue. The difference was barely noticeable, but Karen insisted they were violating community standards. The Martinez family left after Karen reported them to Child Services, claiming their kids were unsupervised because they played in their own backyard without an adult watching every second. Everyone had a Karen story. But most people just paid the fines and stayed quiet. They were afraid of making things worse. I should have been afraid too. But I was too tired and too broke to let someone steal from us. The next day, I knocked on Karen's door. She answered wearing a pearl necklace and a cold smile. "Linda, what a surprise," she said, though her tone suggested it wasn't pleasant. "Karen, I noticed you've been using our Wi-Fi," I said, trying to keep my voice calm and professional. "I need you to stop. We're paying for that service, and we need the bandwidth." Her smile disappeared. "I have no idea what you're talking about. Karen, I can see your devices connected to our network. Please disconnect them and use your own internet." She crossed her arms. "As HOA president, I have a responsibility to monitor neighborhood connectivity. I'm ensuring our community has adequate internet access." I blinked, unable to believe what I was hearing. That's not how internet works. You can't just use other people's Wi-Fi without permission. I suggest you check the HOA bylaws, Linda. You'll find that community resources are meant to be shared. She started to close the door. "And while you're reading them, review Section 12 about appropriate landscaping. Your rose bushes are looking rather overgrown." She shut the door in my face. I stood there for a moment, shocked by her audacity. She wasn't just stealing our internet, she was threatening me with HOA violations for confronting her about it. When I got home and told Emma what happened, I could see the anger building in her eyes. "That's theft," Emma said firmly. "And then she threatened you." "That's not okay, Mom." "I know, sweetheart, but we need to be careful. Karen has a lot of power in this neighborhood." Emma shook her head. "Power doesn't mean she can break the law. I'm changing our Wi-Fi password right now." "Emma, wait." But she was already typing on her laptop. Within minutes, our network had a new password, and Karen's devices were disconnected. "There," Emma said with satisfaction. "Problem solved." I felt a sense of dread. With Karen, nothing was ever solved that easily. The next morning, I found a violation notice on our front door. Karen had cited us for 15 different infractions. Each violation carried a $100 fine. The total was $1,500, due within 7 days. My hands shook as I read the notice. This was clearly retaliation for cutting off her internet access. Most of these violations were either completely made up or so minor that no reasonable person would consider them problems. I called the HOA complaint hotline, but it went directly to Karen's voicemail. I tried emailing the HOA board, but Karen was the only one who responded. She said my complaints had been noted and dismissed. The system was rigged. Karen had complete control, and there was no one to appeal to. "We need to fight this," Emma said after reading the violation notice. "This is harassment." "With what money?" I asked, feeling defeated. "We can't afford a lawyer, and even if we could, the legal fees would be more than just paying the fines. So we just let her win." I didn't have a good answer. I was working 50-hour weeks at the hospital just to cover our mortgage and bills. I couldn't take on a legal battle with the HOA. But Emma wasn't ready to give up. She started researching tenant rights and HOA laws. She found online forums where people shared stories similar to ours. She discovered that many of Karen's rules weren't actually in the official HOA bylaws. Karen had just made them up over the years, and no one had challenged her. "Mom, look at this," Emma said, showing me her laptop. "Half of these violations aren't even real rules. The HOA charter doesn't mention grass height, doormat sizes, or garden gnomes. Karen's been making up rules for years." She was right. But knowing Karen was wrong didn't change the fact that she had the power to make our lives miserable. A week later, I came home from a long shift at the hospital to find Emma's school backpack thrown in our bushes. Papers were scattered across our lawn, soaked from the sprinklers. Emma was sitting on our front steps, crying. "What happened?" I asked, rushing to her side. "Karen," she said, her voice shaking with anger and hurt. "I was walking home from school, and she was in our driveway again. She had her laptop out, trying to connect to our Wi-Fi." "What did you do?" "I asked her to leave. Politely, I promise. I just said, 'Mrs. Mitchell, this is our property. Please leave.' And she lost it, Mom. She started screaming at me, calling me disrespectful and ungrateful. She said I was a spoiled brat who needed to learn her place. My protective instincts kicked in immediately." "Did she touch you?" Emma nodded, fresh tears streaming down her face. "She grabbed my backpack and threw it. She said my schoolwork was worthless anyway because I'd never amount to anything. Then she said she was going to make sure we'd lose our house." I pulled Emma into a tight hug, fury building in my chest. This had gone too far. Karen had crossed a line from petty harassment to assault. "We're calling the police," I said. Officer Bradley arrived 30 minutes later. He was a middle-aged man with kind eyes who listened patiently as Emma explained what happened. "Did anyone else witness this?" he asked. "No, it was just me," Emma said quietly. "And you said she threw your backpack but didn't physically strike you?" "She grabbed my backpack while it was on my shoulders, yanked it off, and threw it." "Does that count?" Officer Bradley sighed. "Technically, that could be considered assault. But without witnesses or video evidence, it's your word against hers. And Mrs. Mitchell is the HOA president. She's well known in the community. So you're not going to do anything? I asked, trying to keep my voice level. I'll file a report, and I can go talk to her. But I'm being honest with you, these kinds of neighbor disputes rarely result in charges. My advice would be to try to work it out between yourselves or consider involving a mediator. After he left, I felt completely helpless. The police wouldn't help. The HOA wouldn't help. We were on our own against someone who seemed to have all the power. 2 days later was the incident that changed everything. I was at work when Emma called me, her voice tight with fear. "Mom, Karen's in our backyard." "What? Why?" "She says she's inspecting our property for violations." "But Mom, she's trying to get into our router box. She has tools." "I'm calling the police right now." "Lock all the doors and stay inside." "I already called them. They said they'd send someone, but it's not an emergency, so it might take a while." I told my supervisor I had a family emergency and rushed home. The drive felt endless. I kept imagining Karen breaking into our house, hurting Emma, destroying our property. When I pulled into our driveway 15 minutes later, I saw Emma standing in our front yard, her face pale. Across the yard, Karen was walking back toward her house, carrying a small black box. She took our router. Emma shouted as I got out of my car. "Mom, she literally cut the cables and stole our router." I ran after Karen. "Stop. That's our property." Karen turned around, her face twisted with rage. This equipment was interfering with community signals. As HOA president, I have the authority to remove problematic devices. You can't just steal our things. It's not stealing. It's confiscation. Read your HOA agreement. Give it back right now, or I'm calling the police. Karen laughed. "Go ahead. Call them. We both know they won't do anything. You're nobody, Linda. You're just a nurse who can barely afford to live here. I could have you evicted tomorrow if I wanted to." Emma appeared beside me. "You're a thief and a bully. And everyone in this neighborhood knows it." Karen's face went dark red. "What did you just say to me?" "You heard me. You're pathetic. You steal from us because you're too cheap to pay for your own internet. You threaten people because you have no real power in your actual life. You're just a sad, lonely woman who—" I tried to grab Emma's arm to stop her, but it was too late. Karen reached into her purse. Everything happened so fast and so slow at the same time. Karen pulled out a small silver handgun. Emma's eyes went wide. I tried to push Emma behind me, but I was too far away. The gun went off. The sound was deafening, nothing like movies. It was a sharp crack that seemed to split the air in half. Emma stumbled backward and fell. I screamed and ran to her. Blood was spreading across her shirt, just above her hip. Her face was white with shock, her mouth open but no sound coming out. "Emma. Baby, stay with me." I pressed my hands against the wound, my nursing training kicking in through the panic. "Someone call 911. Neighbors started appearing from their houses, drawn by the gunshot. Karen stood there, the gun still in her hand, looking confused. She disrespected me," Karen said quietly, as if explaining something obvious. "Children need to learn respect." Mr. Patel from across the street was already on his phone with emergency services. Mrs. Chen ran over with towels. "Keep pressure on it," I told Mrs. Chen, my voice surprisingly steady despite my shaking hands. "I need to check for an exit wound." I carefully rolled Emma onto her side. There was no exit wound, the bullet was still inside her. "Mom." Emma whispered, her voice weak. "Am I going to die?" "No, baby. No. You're going to be fine." The ambulance is coming. I stroked her hair, trying not to let her see my tears. You're going to be just fine. Sirens wailed in the distance, getting closer. Karen seemed to wake up from her trance. She looked at the gun in her hand, then at Emma bleeding on the ground, then at all the neighbors staring at her in horror. I didn't mean. She stammered. She was disrespectful. She needed to learn. Don't move. Officer Bradley came running from his patrol car, his weapon drawn. He must have been in the neighborhood already. Drop the weapon. Now. Karen looked at him, confused. Then she carefully set the gun on the ground. I'm the HOA president, she said, as if that explained everything. I was enforcing community standards. Officer Bradley kicked the gun away and pulled out his handcuffs. You have the right to remain silent. From the moment Karen pulled the trigger to the moment the handcuffs clicked shut was exactly 3 minutes. I know because I kept checking my watch, calculating how long Emma had been bleeding, how long until the ambulance arrived. 3 minutes for Karen's entire world to collapse. 3 minutes for my daughter's blood to soak into our lawn. 3 minutes for our neighborhood to realize what they'd allowed to happen by staying silent for so many years. The ambulance arrived as Officer Bradley was putting Karen in his patrol car. The paramedics were fast and professional. They got in 4 started, stabilized Emma's neck and spine as a precaution, and loaded her onto a stretcher. Are you her mother? One of the paramedics asked. Yes. I'm also a nurse. The wound is in her lower right abdomen, small caliber, no exit wound. She's stable but in shock. Pulse is 120, breathing rapid but steady. He nodded, appreciating the information. You can ride with us. As they loaded Emma into the ambulance, I looked back at Karen sitting in the police car. She was staring straight ahead, her face blank. She looked small and ordinary, not like the monster who terrorized our neighborhood for 8 years. The next few hours were a blur of waiting rooms and surgical consultations. The bullet had missed Emma's vital organs but had lodged near her kidney. The surgeons needed to operate to remove it and repair the damage. My co-workers from St. Mary's surrounded me with support. Nurses brought me coffee and food I couldn't eat. Doctors I'd worked with for years checked on Emma personally, making sure she had the best care possible. Detective Sarah Martinez from the county police came to take my statement. She was a woman in her 40s with sharp eyes and a gentle manner. Mrs. Cooper, I know this is difficult, but I need to understand exactly what happened. I told her everything, the Wi-Fi theft, the harassment, the escalating threats, Karen's assault on Emma earlier in the week, and finally today's shooting. Did you ever file police reports about the harassment? She asked. Officer Bradley filed a report about Karen assaulting Emma 2 days ago. But he said without witnesses, there wasn't much he could do. Detective Martinez's jaw tightened. I see. And the HOA violations she was filing against you? I have all the paperwork. 15 violations, each with a $100 fine, all filed the day after we changed our Wi-Fi password and cut off her access. This shows a clear pattern of harassment and retaliation, she said, making notes. And multiple witnesses saw her shoot your daughter? At least 6 neighbors. And I think Mr. Patel was recording on his phone. She nodded. Mrs. Mitchell is being charged with attempted murder, assault with a deadly weapon, theft, and harassment. Based on what you've told me, I'll be recommending additional charges related to her abuse of her HOA position. Will she go to prison? If convicted on the attempted murder charge alone, she's looking at 15 to 30 years. Combined with everything else. Detective Martinez looked me in the eyes. She'll never hurt your family again. Emma was in surgery for 4 hours. The bullet had caused damage to her kidney and small intestine. The surgeons had to remove part of her kidney and repair the intestinal damage. When Dr. Hassan finally came out to the waiting room, he looked tired but satisfied. The surgery went well, he said. We removed the bullet and repaired the damage. Emma's young and healthy, so her recovery should be good. But she'll need to stay in the hospital for at least a week, and she'll have a long recovery period at home. Can I see her? She's in recovery now. Give us about 30 minutes, and then you can sit with her. When I finally saw Emma in her hospital bed, hooked up to monitors and 4 lines, I broke down. I'd been holding it together for hours, being strong, being professional. But seeing my baby like that, pale and small and hurt, destroyed me. I sat beside her bed and held her hand, crying silently. Her eyes fluttered open. Mom. I'm here, baby. I'm right here. It hurts, she whispered. I know. The nurses will give you more pain medication soon. You just had surgery to remove the bullet. Karen shot me, she said, as if she still couldn't believe it. Yes. But she's in jail now. She can't hurt you anymore. Emma closed her eyes. I was just trying to stop her from stealing from us. I know. You didn't do anything wrong. None of this is your fault. By the next morning, our story was all over the local news. HOA president shoots teenager over Wi-Fi password was the headline that went viral. Reporters called my phone constantly. News vans parked outside our house and the hospital. Everyone wanted to interview us, to hear our story, to express their outrage. I declined all interview requests. Emma needed to focus on healing, not reliving her trauma for cameras. But other people were talking. Our neighbors gave interviews describing Karen's years of harassment. Former residents of Pinewood Estates came forward with their own stories of abuse and intimidation. The Hendersons, who'd been forced to move over a door color, spoke about accumulating $8,000 in fines they couldn't afford to pay. The Martinez family described how Karen had called child services on them 4 different times, each claim investigated and found to be completely false. A pattern emerged in the media coverage. Karen Mitchell had been running Pinewood Estates like her personal kingdom for 8 years, and everyone had been too afraid to stop her. Detective Martinez called me 3 days after the shooting. Mrs. Cooper, I wanted to update you on the investigation. We've been looking into Mrs. Mitchell's HOA activities, and we found some disturbing things. Like what? She's been embezzling HOA funds for years. Residents pay monthly dues that are supposed to go toward community maintenance, but large portions of it were being transferred to Karen's personal accounts. We're talking about over $100,000. I felt sick. So all those fines she was giving people. Most of them went straight into her pocket. The HOA had very little oversight, and Karen took advantage of that. We're also finding evidence that she was running a personal vendetta against multiple families. Your situation wasn't unique, you were just the latest target. Will this help the case against her? Absolutely. It establishes a pattern of criminal behavior and abuse of power. Combined with the shooting, Karen's looking at serious prison time. While Emma recovered in the hospital, something unexpected happened in Pinewood Estates. The community came together. Neighbors organized a meal train, bringing food to our house even though we weren't there. They mowed our lawn, watered our plants, and made sure our home was maintained. Mrs. Chen started a fundraiser to help with Emma's medical bills. Within 3 days, they'd raised $15,000. Mr. Patel organized an emergency HOA meeting to vote Karen out of power and dissolve the current board. Every single household voted yes. The neighborhood hired a lawyer to investigate Karen's financial dealings and recover the stolen HOA funds. They also revised the HOA bylaws to prevent any future president from having Karen's level of unchecked power. People I'd barely spoken to before stopped by the hospital with cards and gifts for Emma. They apologized for not standing up to Karen sooner, for letting her harass families without consequence. We were cowards, Mr. Patel said when he visited. We saw what she was doing to people, and we stayed silent because we didn't want to be her next target. I'm so sorry you and Emma had to pay the price for our fear. I appreciated his honesty, even though part of me was angry. If people had spoken up years ago, maybe none of this would have happened. Emma came home from the hospital 8 days after the shooting. She moved slowly and carefully, still in significant pain from her surgery. I'd taken a month off work using FMLA leave to care for her. We spent our days watching movies, talking, and slowly processing what had happened. Emma had nightmares. She'd wake up screaming, reliving the moment Karen pulled the gun. She was afraid to go outside, afraid to be alone, afraid of sudden movements. I scheduled her with a trauma therapist who specialized in violent crime victims. Dr. Roberts was patient and skilled, helping Emma work through her fear and trauma. "It's going to take time," Dr. Roberts told me after one of Emma's sessions. What she experienced was terrifying and life-threatening. The psychological wounds will take longer to heal than the physical ones. But she's strong, and with support, she'll recover. Karen's trial began 4 months after the shooting. The prosecutor, Assistant DA Michael Chen, was confident about the case. "We have multiple witnesses, video evidence from Mr. Patel's phone, the gun with her fingerprints, and Emma's medical records. Plus, the evidence of HOA fraud and harassment establishes motive and pattern of behavior. This is about as strong a case as you can get." Emma had to testify. I was worried about putting her through that, but the prosecutor said her testimony was important. "The jury needs to see her," he explained. "They need to understand that she's a real person, a kid who was just trying to protect her family. And Karen's defense is going to try to paint Emma as disrespectful and provocative. Emma's testimony will counter that narrative." On the day Emma testified, I sat in the courtroom feeling sick with anxiety. Emma wore a simple blue dress and looked so young and vulnerable walking to the witness stand. The prosecutor asked her to describe what happened. Emma's voice was quiet but steady. "Mrs. Mitchell had been stealing our internet for months. When we asked her to stop, she started harassing us with fake HOA violations. That day, she came into our backyard and stole our router. I told her she was acting like a bully. And then she pulled out a gun and shot me." "Did you threaten her in any way?" "No. I was upset, and I said things that probably hurt her feelings. But I never threatened her or touched her." "What did you say to her?" Emma hesitated, then said quietly, "I told her she was pathetic. That she stole from us because she was too cheap to pay for her own internet. That she was a sad, lonely woman." "Were those words disrespectful?" "Yes. I shouldn't have said them. I was angry, and I wanted to hurt her feelings like she'd been hurting us." "Did anything you said justify being shot?" "No," Emma said firmly. "Words can't justify violence." Karen's defense attorney tried to make Emma look like the aggressor, but it didn't work. The video from Mr. Patel's phone showed everything clearly: Emma standing in our yard, Karen approaching with anger, the argument, and then Karen pulling the gun and firing. The jury deliberated for less than 3 hours. Guilty on all charges. Karen's sentencing hearing was 2 weeks later. The judge allowed victim impact statements. I stood before the court and described how the shooting had changed our lives. Emma's physical injuries, her psychological trauma, the medical bills, the time off work, the fear we both still felt every day. "Karen Mitchell nearly killed my daughter over a Wi-Fi password," I said, looking directly at Karen, who sat expressionless at the defense table. "She terrorized our neighborhood for years, and no one stopped her. She abused her power, stole money, and used fear to control everyone around her. When my daughter finally stood up to her, she responded with attempted murder. She deserves to spend a very long time in prison thinking about what she's done." Emma also gave a statement. She walked slowly to the microphone, still moving carefully from her injuries. "I'm 17 years old," Emma said. "I'm supposed to be applying to colleges and planning my future. Instead, I have nightmares every night. I'm afraid to go outside. I have a permanent scar on my body and permanent damage to my kidney. All because I asked someone to stop stealing from us." She paused, looking at Karen. I don't forgive you. What you did was evil. And I hope you spend the rest of your life in prison. The judge sentenced Karen to 25 years in prison for attempted murder, plus additional time for the theft, embezzlement, and harassment charges. With the sentences running consecutively, Karen would be in prison for at least 32 years. She'd be 87 years old before she was eligible for parole. As they led Karen away in handcuffs, she looked at me with hatred in her eyes. No remorse, no regret. Just anger that she'd been caught and punished. A year after the shooting, Emma started college. She chose to stay local and attend community college for her first 2 years, both because it was affordable and because she wasn't ready to move away from home yet. She's studying psychology now, interested in trauma and recovery. The shooting changed her career plans from nursing to mental health, but she's passionate about her new path. I want to help people who've been through what I went through, she told me. I want them to know they can heal and move forward. The scar on her abdomen is still visible, a permanent reminder of that horrible day. Her kidney function is good, but she has to be careful about certain medications and stays hydrated. She'll need regular medical checkups for the rest of her life. The nightmares have decreased but haven't gone away completely. She still sees Dr. Roberts every 2 weeks, working through her trauma and building coping strategies. As for me, I went back to work at the hospital. My co-workers were incredibly supportive, and several of them have become close friends. I'm more careful now about our safety, we have security cameras, better locks, and I'm always aware of our surroundings in a way I never was before. We still live in Pinewood Estates. Some people suggested we should move, but this is our home. We refuse to let Karen take that away from us too. The neighborhood is completely different now. The new HOA board is reasonable and transparent. They reduced the monthly fees once they realized how much money Karen had been stealing. They eliminated most of the ridiculous rules Karen had invented. People are friendlier now, more willing to help each other. It's like Karen's removal freed everyone from fear. We also sued Karen and the HOA in civil court. Our lawyer argued that the HOA was negligent in allowing Karen to abuse her power for so many years without oversight. The case settled out of court. The HOA's insurance paid $500,000 to cover Emma's medical expenses, future care, in pain and suffering. Karen's personal assets, including her house, were seized to pay an additional $200,000. That money is in a trust fund for Emma's education and future. It doesn't make up for what she went through, but at least she won't have to worry about college debt or medical bills. People ask me what I learned from this nightmare. Here's what I tell them. First, speak up when something's wrong. I should have pushed harder when Karen first started harassing us. I should have documented everything, contacted lawyers, and made noise until someone listened. My instinct to stay quiet and avoid conflict nearly got my daughter killed. Second, institutions need oversight. HOAs, like any organization with power over people's lives, need checks and balances. No one should have the kind of unchecked authority Karen had. Third, communities have a responsibility to protect vulnerable members. Our neighbors saw what Karen was doing for years, and most stayed silent out of fear. Their silence enabled her to escalate until she shot a teenager. When we see abuse of power, we have to stand together against it. Save every email, every letter, every violation notice. Take photos and videos. If I hadn't kept all of Karen's harassment documented, building our case would have been much harder. Finally, never underestimate how far someone will go when they feel their power is threatened. I thought Karen was just a bully. I never imagined she'd escalate to attempted murder. But people who define themselves by their power over others can become dangerous when that power is challenged. It's been 2 years since the shooting. Emma is thriving in college, working part-time at a crisis hotline, and planning to transfer to a 4-year university next fall to complete her psychology degree. I got promoted to charge nurse at the hospital. I also volunteer with a local organization that helps HOA abuse victims navigate their legal options. Karen is in prison, where she'll stay for many years. I don't think about her much anymore. She's not worth the mental energy. Our neighborhood continues to heal. The Hendersons moved back after the new HOA board apologized and reimbursed their unfair fines. The Martinez family visits occasionally, though they've settled in their new city and don't plan to return. We have block parties now. Real ones, where people actually enjoy each other's company instead of walking on eggshells afraid of HOA violations. Emma and I are closer than ever. Trauma either destroys families or makes them stronger. For us, it was the latter. We survived something horrible together, and we came out the other side intact. I never wanted our story to become a news headline. I never wanted to be the woman whose daughter was shot by the HOA president. But this is our reality, and we've learned to live with it. If you're reading this and dealing with HOA harassment, document everything. Speak up. Get a lawyer if you can afford one. Don't wait until things escalate like they did for us. If you're on an HOA board, remember that you're serving your community, not ruling it. Use your power responsibly and with compassion. And if you're like Karen, someone who's using a position of minor authority to make other people's lives miserable, please get help. Your need for control is hurting real people and will eventually destroy your own life too. As for Emma and me, we're doing okay. We're healing. We're moving forward. And we're making sure our story helps prevent this from happening to anyone else. Because no one should get shot over a Wi-Fi password. And no bully should have unchecked power over their neighbors' lives. That's our story. It's not the ending I would have chosen, but it's the one we got. And we're making the best of it, one day at a time. This story is based on real events, though some details have been changed to protect privacy. HOA abuse is a real problem affecting millions of people. If you're experiencing similar harassment, please contact a lawyer familiar with HOA law in your state. You have rights, and you don't have to face this alone. Today, Emma is 19 years old and thriving. She recently gave a speech at our state capitol about HOA reform, standing confidently before lawmakers and sharing her story. Watching her speak with such strength and purpose, I felt overwhelming pride. The scared, wounded girl from that terrible day has grown into a powerful advocate for change. She's dating a wonderful young man she met in her psychology class. He knows her story and treats her with the gentleness and respect she deserves. Seeing her laugh freely again, seeing her trust someone new, reminds me that healing is possible. Last month, we received a letter from a family in another state. They'd read our story online and it gave them courage to fight back against their own abusive HOA president. They won their case, and they credited our story with giving them hope. That letter hangs on our refrigerator now, a reminder that our pain had purpose. I still have moments when I see Emma's scar and feel rage at what Karen took from us. But then I see how Emma has transformed that trauma into strength, how she's helping others, how she refuses to let that day define her entire life. We survived. We fought back. We won. And most importantly, we're still here, still together, still building our future despite everything someone tried to take from us. If you're facing your own HOA nightmare, please don't give up. Document everything, speak up, and remember, you are not alone in this fight.